So, I'd like to introduce you to Roger Summit. Roger is the founder and chairman emeritus of Dialog. He conducted the pioneering work started in 1964 that led to the creation of Dialog, and he held executive positions there until his retirement in 1992. He has served on national and international advisory boards and professional associations and has received numerous honors. He's also published over 100 papers and journal articles based on his knowledge and experience with online information services. Roger.
Thank you. I'm given 2 bottles of water here. That must mean something.
Tell us about how you got into the search business.
Well, you know, before I do that, I see so many friends and compatriots and old fellow employees here from Dialog. I'd like to ask them just to stand up for a moment so that we can see who they are.
So I counted about a dozen people in the audience, plus the 5 of you, or the 4 of you who were past employees.
Well, we can have the next slide, I guess.
Okie doke.
History-wise, I joined Lockheed in 1960 as a summer hire, and was given 2 assignments by E.K. Fisher, who was the head of information processing there at the time. Wonderful man that had a terrible job. And he gave me 2 assignments. One was in simulation, computer simulation processes, and the other was in information retrieval. And I did some work in computer simulation, but then gravitated to information retrieval. And in the later 60s, ran around, well, not the later 60s, but 61, 62, 63, ran around to a lot of conferences, met H. Peter Lund, who was a very famous IBM information guy. And we all started thinking about information retrieval. Of course, in those days, the computers that we had, the technology that we had, were like 1410s, IBM 1410s, serial processors. And so searching was an extremely tedious process. And I'll be, I think, going into that a little bit later. But what happened in 1964, when we learned of the 360 series, we said, now the time has arrived, because it has mass random access storage, it has telecommunications, and it has interactive processing from terminals. We hadn't had that before, but it just fit like a glove to what we wanted to do in information retrieval. So Herschel Brown, the executive, well, I guess founder and executive vice president of Lockheed Missiles and Space Corporation, was also interested in the technology, and he backed our proposal for an information sciences lab up in Palo Alto in the Stanford Industrial Park. And we started looking at how we could use the 360 series for information retrieval. I took on a task then of monetizing the research that we had done and put together a group of 6 people, as we'll see later on. And we set about to form Dialog. Now let's see. Now let's take a look, Brian, at the computer configuration of the IBM 36030. How many people worked on an IBM 360? Oh my goodness sakes. Well, I'm not going to say much about it because I'm afraid I'd get too many corrections to my statements. But anyway, the first, I think we're seeing, are we seeing a slide of the computer configuration that we have?
Yes, we do. We have the full configuration on the screen.
We got a 30 with, what do we have? 32K of core memory. Yeah.
And of course, that was the year the 360 came out, 1964.
That was the year. We got one of the first ones. And we configured it with 2311 disk drives. Each of those had 7.25 megabytes of storage. And we had 2 of them, so we had 15 megabytes of mass random access storage, of random access storage. And then we got a 2321 data cell that has 40 megabytes of storage. How many people have ever worked on a 2321 data cell? A couple.
I think you said 40 megabytes, wasn't it 400 megabytes?
It was 400. If I said 40, I was mistaken. we wound up with about 4 strings of 7 data cells per string as we were building up our databases. Do you have the database slide up
Yeah,
there?
that's on right now, and so that would be a total of a little over 11 gigabytes of data.
Yeah, a little yeah.
I have it off by one order,
Yeah,
maybe two
about
on
20,
that
yeah. So then in the next slide, we see how we kept our databases in store and in the tape library. And when we had the Loma Prieta earthquake, I don't have a picture of it, but those tapes were all over the floor and completely randomized in sequence. Okay, let's see where we are here. Well,
So we're at the bottom right on your sheet there.
we're at the pre-dialogue search landscape. I don't know if anyone here is old enough to remember searching the published indexes and reference works. You know, going into chemical abstracts in paper. Well, anyway, that's what was happening at Lockheed and at Palo Alto in the research lab, and the word was going around there. It's often easier to redo research than it is to find out if anyone's done it already. So with that, we saw an opportunity.